This is part 2 of the information on perimenopause, ADD, ADHD, and the spontaneous brain. It starts or it continues where I left off last time, and it's again based on the information from the podcast, The Diary of a CEO with Dr. Amen, and it includes some other information which really fits perfectly to this image. So we've had the balanced brain, the spontaneous brain, the persistent brain, the sensitive brain, and the cautious brain. And what each brain type basically does, it gives us information based on Dr. Amen. It tells us where we and how we're going to suffer. Ta-da! Ta-da! And again, this time I'm focusing once more on the spontaneous brain because it's so closely linked and in a way similar to an ADD and ADHD brain, which all of these, they're seeking novelty, surprises, the unknown, and unfortunately, especially with people with ADD, all of these basically tend to get more negative thoughts, tend to see more negative things. They somehow focus more on those things, and it's possibly simply because they stimulate more. They're so much easier to fire in our brain and to stimulate. So in case you notice that you're just soaking up bad news and Instagram feeds and TikTok and that influencer and whatnot, and you just see negative, 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 and you're thinking negative, negative, negative. If you're finding that that's happening, it could be because you're more inclined to have this spontaneous brain, and it can be in the long run that you're creating a vicious circle. So instead of firing your brain, nourishing your brain with the bad stuff, with the negative thoughts, to be aware of that and to consciously choose if you really want those thoughts or if you might possibly want some other thoughts. Also, why the negativity is, as I said, it gives us the spike. It's giving us this impulse. It feels that we're getting what we're seeking, but it's just a dopamine hit, and we could get these dopamine hits differently. Like I mentioned last time, we could have cold showers. As ladies, we don't need the ice bath. A cold shower, 8 degrees, 10 degrees, 12 degrees, that's enough. We do not need the ice bath. Actually, the ice bath isn't really good because it's too much stress on our body. It's better for the male body. The saunas are really helpful, where we have extreme heat, which we need to counterbalance. High intensity training, going crazy on the dance floor, even if it's on your kitchen floor. Really, really, really helpful to give peaks other than negativity and negative thoughts. And then our brain can balance these out and gets us on a more stable level. Also, and I had not really been making that connection, but it's so obvious now that I know it. Carbohydrates, sugars. I'm not saying never eat carbohydrates and sugars again in your life. No, do include them, because especially as women, we need relatively more carbohydrates than the male body does. But like a big plate of pasta or that piece of cake or a juice, a smoothie, that's really, it's like a sugar spike to the brain. It's a dopamine hit to the brain. Those sugar and glucose spikes, they feel good for a while, but they negatively affect what's happening afterwards. As I mentioned, as Dr. Anna Lemke says, our brain is not wired in the way that we love the spikes, whether the fluctuations up or the crashes down. Our brain loves to be in a neutral position, so to say. Imagine it would be a car and it's just driving without a gear. That would be the favorite position. It's not the 6th or 7th gear, and it's not the never started the engine. So it's loving. That's such a weird picture, but maybe it sticks. this neutral state, that's what our brain loves. And when we give it the sugar spikes, when we give it the glucose spikes, even if we think it's like healthy sugar, like it's smoothie, it's fruits, not so good. It will do its best to get it down, to get it down, to get it down, so that it's back on a neutral level. So rather find healthier ways to be in the neutral position. And instead of the spike up, it could be interesting to start with the spike down. Like, what can you do to be really stressful to your body, to your brain, to your thoughts, to your physique, so that automatically your body is creating all these other hormones and chemical reactions to be in its happy, neutral state. Again, or additionally, what lower glucose levels and more steady glucose levels do, so not that piece of cake or that plate of pasta, more steady glucose levels also cause serotonin levels and dopamine levels to be more steady. So it feels easier to navigate, to make it through the day, and possibly to sleep better, because serotonin is a predecessor of melatonin, which then helps you to have a good night's sleep. A side note, I find this so interesting. I wish I would be a biologist now so I could research all these things with other experts and consult with them. So maybe you find this channel and consult with me through this channel. On a side note, sugar, like those glucose spikes, they might make happy in the short term, but this is what I love, just sugar drops the frontal lobe function. Boop, shut down, like we're closed for the day. Sugar drops the frontal lobe function of your brain. So that can then cause an even grander and even more vicious circle. So when your frontal lobe isn't working as clear, as connected, and isn't nourished with blood and energy as good as it could be, you might react even more impulsively. You might be craving even more of the negative news and negative inputs. And the more of that negativity your brain is focusing on, the stronger those paths, the stronger those rail tracks are really going to get. And if you have been in a consulting role, if you have been in a role trying to find the flaw in the system, I mean, that's what I've been doing for a long time in my career. I was finding the system, I was finding the flaw, and I was helping to improve, to continuously improve and to better. So my brain was wired on identifying what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, what could be better, what could be better. Yet it did cause, in a way, a vicious circle, because after a while that was all I could see. Except it was a K-drama or a beautiful news song or something like that, or walking in the park. But my tracks, they were really, really strong. They were my professional life and career to look for the bad stuff. And that's not even considering Instagram and reels and influences and all of that and all of that speed. So tying it back to the spontaneous brain, novelty, excitement, unknown, pioneering, and ADD and ADHD, though they're completely different, they're not the same. The one doesn't cause the other, but they're in a way similar, seeking this novelty, seeking this excitement, seeking this dopamine spike. And for that, it's so helpful. And you can experiment with it. You can see if it's working for you, when it's working for you, to lower the likeliness of having such a spike. So do have your plate of pasta, do have your smoothie if you urgently need it, do have that piece of cake, but find ways how you can reduce the spikes. And there's easy hacks. Once again, I'm saying, look at the videos of the glucose goddess, because she has wonderful videos and awesome hacks, and they're so simple. And one is basically put close on the carbohydrates, put close on the sugars, which basically is add a bit of protein and fat to the carbohydrates and to the sugars so that they're not absorbed just as quickly, or have a glass of vinegar water before you eat it, or have some vegetables before you start with the actual meal. All these little hacks, super simple to implement, and they are really can help to lower that dopamine hit. And it feels just as good to eat it, to have the cake and to have the pasta. It's not that suddenly it doesn't taste good anymore, but your body, instead of jumping to the moon, it will just gradually have glucose increases, but it's not sending you on the crazy roller coaster. So that's ADD, ADHD, and the spontaneous brain. Oh, now again, tying it back to perimenopause. It is found by some ADD and ADHD therapists that especially in the second half of our cycles, even pre-perimenopause, but more presently during perimenopause, that in the second half of our cycle, so post-ovulation, if it happens, that we just need a little bit more of dopamine. So what's done in therapy is actually to increase the level given to the patients in dopamine through medication. But you can also, if you're not diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, but you're sensing, I do have a spontaneous brain, and I love my spontaneous brain, but I feel that some days, some weeks, maybe it's just 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, maybe it's 2 weeks, throughout your cycle, you're not feeling too well and you're craving, whether it's you need to finish that level on Candy Crush, or you need to binge watch that next series, or you need whatever it is that your mind, your brain is just screaming at you that it's craving. You might find it helpful in that phase to find and experiment with those other things, like the sauna, like the cold shower, like the high intensity training, like jumping up and down the stairs or dancing crazily in your kitchen, maybe with your partner, to really artificially, in a way, create plunges of dopamine, which then, since our brain loves the neutrality, creates dopamine to bring the levels back up. So I don't think that's the most scientific explanation, but logically, I do believe it's correct. So play with it, experiment with that. And I'm looking forward to see you next time. Share in the comments what's been working and maybe what's not. I'm curious to read that. Bye-bye.